Thank you for the people that have joined so far. We're just going to give a couple more minutes to some more people. If you can all hear me okay, just put something in the chat for me, if possible. Right, I think we can start now. So yeah, just thank you for joining me on, well, sunny lunchtime for people in the UK and in different parts of the world. Thank you for joining us. We're here today really to just discuss kind of the next stage of kind of that identity question. And I'm keen as a publisher to give you my view and show you kind of what we're doing and tell you a little bit about ourselves. And I'll do that in an intro at the beginning. And then the view we don't really see is from the CMP side and from the data platform side. We see a publisher view, we see a buyer's view, we see ID consulting view. But I brought Chris today to basically kind of ask you questions around what he's seeing from all the different sides and get a real good insight into, okay, what are we seeing on our side? And we know what we're doing, but what are the other people doing in the industry? So I think that's kind of a really good insight that we can kind of see and get the answers to today. Also, I'm very keen, as you might have seen before, I'm very vocal about, we've been talking about this for about a year or more now, and it's now coming from the educational side to the actual practical side, right? It's taking everything we've talked about, everything we've learned and said that we've got in place, and taking them solutions and proving the concept of the cookie doesn't need to exist for us to do what we're doing. And actually, the more prepared we are, the better the performance will be for us, the marketers, and everybody in kind of the ecosystem. So really keen on kind of that. So I'm Terry Hornsby, Digital Director of Reach PLC. And Chris, over to you.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Chris Hogg, Lotame's EMEA Managing Director.
So yeah, so today, from a Reach PLC point of view, and from a publisher point of view, we've been talking about this for a long time, doing a lot of solutions, product building, etc. We've come up with audience products that are first-party cookie-based, contextual-based. We have a tool called Mantis, which is a brand safety and contextual tool. And we've worked with Chris and his team on making that all available to build segments and create audience segments that are future-proof for the future. I guess from our side, there is no one solution that solves all. So from my view, there is your contextual, there is your first-party data, there is your segments for first-party data, and then there's your cohorts, which obviously with the Flock, the Fledge, the Magnite, the Pre-Bid, there's lots of cohorts out there. And we are looking at all of them solutions. We are doing tests with all of them solutions across the board. And we are looking at performance, and we're looking at what we can do as a publisher to help prove the concept for marketers and show them that it's working from the buyer side. So I think that's the key thing for us, is that one takeaway is that it's not one solution fits all. And also, I don't think from an industry point of view, we need to stand together and we all win together with this. There's no real winner in doing one solution over another. And I think with us as publishers, we have the duty to the marketers and to the agencies to provide that inventory, provide that segmentation, provide that performance. And I think that's a really key thing for us, really. as a publisher on our side. So yeah, I guess we'll jump straight into questions for you, Chris. So in terms of your take on the buy side, what are you currently seeing from the buy side from a DMP point of view? What's the requests and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, and as you mentioned, we sit in quite a unique space where we work with the agencies, we work with the marketers, and we also work with the publishers. And I think identity has been one of those talking points for a long time. And I would probably say the start of this year, maybe late last year, where it really started to be a bit of a reality across the whole of the market. And very much there's been different sides of the market that's been more vocal than other sides of the market. I think publishers really got on to the identity piece quite early, talking about the different tactics. Obviously, there was a lot of contextual based conversations, which of course from a publisher that's super important from their editorial point of view. I think agencies have been very much in research mode. How do we connect the two? How do we help our brands continue to activate their first party data, and how do we continue to buy across the rich data from publishers? And I think brands have probably been a little less vocal of their requirements around identity, depending on the size of the brand, depending, I guess, how much kind of reliance they've been working through their agency. And I think some of the interesting stuff that we're seeing from the demand side of the market is they very much see a portfolio approach when they're looking at their different strategies. If they put that on a conversion funnel from brand awareness, probably very much at the top, through to prospecting, trying to obtain new customers in the middle of the funnel, and then retargeting and share a voice at the bottom of the funnel. They're actually understanding that there's multiple different approaches that's going to be needed, whether that's from let's look at contextual based signals and stuff from the publishers. Let's look at stuff like Flock from Google. Perhaps that'll give us the brand awareness piece. Then in the middle, we need to look at some kind of identity enrichment play. How do we work more closely with the publishers to co-mingle our two data sets? And then down the bottom of the funnel, it's very much, okay, look, we've got email addresses. If lucky from the marketers, and all marketers have them, publishers have email addresses. How can we do that deterministic link to make sure that A, we can still get the rich data sets that we're looking for, and B, we can still bring some of our data into the mix to be used, whether it's retargeting or used for modeling, etc. So it's been very varied, but I think now, as we're approaching 6 months towards where you really need to be doing something, we're probably the last 2 months we've seen an awful lot more activity, which is good, because that activity was slow towards the start of the year.
And in terms of kind of the bits that you're doing to kind of upskill your product, what pieces of product releases have you got now live? Obviously we're using some, but what have you got coming up? What is the next 6 months look like for you as a DMP, really?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And I think what you said earlier, that and from our customer base, including yourself, is you're trying multiple things. So from our point of view, is how do we, one, make sure that we're offering solutions, but two, how do we also be interoperable with other technologies that our customers want to use? So there's really two areas, and we've always covered the spectrum of data. We've helped our customers with first party data management. We've helped customers create their own data sets, whether we want to call that in the second party management, where they want to actually monetize data. And we've also played a very big part in data enrichment, where we've aggregated other data sets to help our customers. So we're trying to build solutions that work across the base. So obviously our biggest piece that we've been spending 18 months, probably longer on now, is one is how do we future-proof our first-party cookie ecosystem? That has a lot to, again, to, to support our publishers, but also our marketers. How do we make sure we can catch any traffic coming to their digital platforms that are not logged in, that are not authenticated? So we worked hard on products that we call Lightning Tag to make sure that we can transact real time on first party cookies. Then we've worked on products like what we call Cartographer, and that's how do we cluster and associate different IDs, even if it's multiple first-party cookie IDs, to help our customers do cross-domain and hold some persistence against that first-party data set. So how do we graph them together? And then the third piece that runs through our product is what we call our ID, our unified ID, Panorama ID. And that's how do we hold those multiple identifiers against a singular ID that's open across the internet, so our customers can actually transport data to the different partners, the different tech platforms, etc. And then, so that's what we've been doing the last 18 months. And, we've done that very successfully. We have ID now out in the ecosystem through pre-bid. We've moved all of our customers over to Lightning Tag, so all of their data is on a first-party cookie. But now our next part in the future is, how do we work with clean rooms? How do we work with other identifiers? Because as we're seeing on both sides of the market, there's very much a portfolio approach, and not everyone's going to be adopting the same IDs. Not everyone's going to be having the same tactics. So how, as a data solutions business, can we sit in the middle and help our customers with all of these different strategies and try and bring as much of it together as we can, with a privacy layer over the top to make sure that our customers' consent signals are also being populated to the different players within the ecosystem.
Okay. Yeah, and I think if we don't panic on New Year's Day, like we shouldn't do, right, and we prepare well for it, I think there's big opportunities, right? One of the big opportunities we see as a publisher and as a cohort with Ozone projects is we see that open marketplace is a big opportunity for us to take some of that spend in advertising and make it work harder for us in a environment that's got scale, it's got multiple publishers, and has got solutions to the hurdles that we've got coming up in the current 6 months. We also see obviously a big opportunity in our first party data. We're rich with data, which is really an advantage, but also the fact that we can get that a little bit more granular. We can then have that closer partnership with advertisers, brands, and agencies, and be able to offer them a little bit more. I guess from your side, with CDPs, CMPs, CDPs have been around. You've been around. What is your pluses out of this, and what do you see your product being in 6 months' time? Is it still a CMP, or is it a mixture of both, or what does that look like?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And I quite often, I hear people say, traditional data businesses, they're just third-party cookie farms, etc. But I don't think that's necessary reality. I think, lots of different IDs are always being translated into our system, and I think up until the end of this year, the third-party cookie was a persistence that everything could get mapped to. So although there was other IDs in the system, it was also the common ID that you could run across as a centralized identifier. So I think a lot of platforms, obviously, they've got to change that. So whether that's steeping their product in email or another deterministic ID, or whether that's creating other IDs like probabilistic IDs. But I think it's important to say that all platforms that are in the data space moving forward are going to need to have the capabilities to translate IDs into something. And I think today CDPs is an interesting landscape. I think you could probably put CDPs into 5 buckets as well. They've not all come from the same place. Some of them have been very much back-end IT solutions, moving data between call centers, etc. And they've never really brought data out into the front of the ecosystem, as we would see, where others have come from tag management platforms, others have come from marketing automation systems. So there was a bit of a tradition to probably the last few years to reclassify a lot of these products into CDPs. But I think at the heart of what a CDP does is obviously it has a deterministic identifier in its product. And I think what DMPs and customer management platforms have been doing to date is trying to translate everything to the common identifier for Adtech, which has been the cookie to date. So it's naturally going to happen. You're going to see capabilities merge in the middle as businesses move probably from email identifiers into other digital identifiers, and as Adtech focused platforms move into the email space through deterministic data sets as well. So I think they're going to become similarities around translation layers with both sets of products. So I think we'll start to see some emergence in the middle where both probabilistic IDs and deterministic IDs are going to be needed to cover 100% of the internet. If we look across the board, we've got brand marketers today that just will never have email addresses, etc. So, because they're not direct to consumer, we're going to have some publishers with larger amounts of email addresses than other publishers. Publishers like yourself, where you have that brand recognition and you have the footprint to actually obtain larger amounts of email addresses, is not going to be what a long tail publisher, etc. So I think platforms are going to need to be able to deal in deterministic and probabilistic identity, and that's where I see the two worlds colliding and coming together.
And so if we draw a line under the ID world, right? It's complicated. There's lots of IDs. We stitch them all together. There is a solution there. Moving on to context. So my view on context is, in some shape or form, context can be very powerful. Yeah. And I'm not talking about putting a sport brand in a sports section, right? I'm talking about kind of the next layer of concept, sentiment, emotion, working out when that person's at a right mindset to get that marketing message to them. From your point of view, how many publishers are you seeing default to contextual, or is there any customers that are just saying, right, contextual is the way forward? We don't want to start with the ID world. We don't want to, it's too complex, and I just want to go with the context side.
Yeah, we're seeing both. And don't get me wrong, I think there's context is important. It's definitely publishers' most valuable asset if they can actually turn their context into what I would call either mood statements or need statements, as opposed to, hey, I looked at an automotive article, so I'm in market. I think publishers with enough resource and enough skill sets can change that narrative. And actually, what is a buying signal for an automotive, or what is a buying signal for a new bed within my context, and be able to surface that. What I would say that we're seeing slight disconnect is, and as you mentioned, we are seeing some publishers saying all we're going to do is focus on context, because what we're not hearing from the demand side is all we want to buy is context. We're hearing from the demand side, yes, we want to buy context from smart organizations that can really drive value, and it's going to be a big part of our portfolio moving forward, but we also want to do other stuff. So wherever businesses are coming down on that, do we do identity plus context? Do we just do context? Do we just do identity? It comes down to the assets as well. Are you a context-rich publisher? Can you do that? But also, it's going to be that risk reward. Do I put all my eggs in one basket and hope we pick the right swim channel? And can I make enough revenue from that to ignore the other revenue on the market? Or do I need to have a foot in each side and trial and test each thing to be able to offer the maximum solutions back to the demand side? I think we're going to see that play out. And I wouldn't necessarily say in the next 6 months. I think there is going to be into next year a good 6 months of trialing different things. Maybe there'll be some U-turns, maybe there won't be some U-turns, etc. But it's definitely going to be an interesting path ahead. And
I guess that being a large publisher, we're lucky in the sense of resource and and the ability to be able to test multiple things at multiple times. And there is smaller publishers out there, and whether actually that's a solution for the likes of Ozone to help them publishers do a mass market type of scale. What, as a CMP, for the long tail, the smaller publishers, what can you do to help them? Is there a plan for you guys to provide templates or off-the-shelf tools or whatever it looks like to be able to help them people that haven't got the data scientists or the analysts to be able to build these products?
Yeah, we have some what we call express packages and stuff, as you know, first-party data management, sort of entry-level products, etc. That helps obviously customers manage their first-party data. But I think if we're specifically focused on the identity space, published like those small long tail publishers, I think there's probably some good sort of little tests they can do to understand the impact on their revenue today, what it's going to be tomorrow. One is, how much are you selling across the open exchange versus direct? I'd imagine the smaller the publisher is, the more that they're actually relying on the open exchange. I would probably pull down a report from the SSPs and stuff that I'm using. I would look at the Safari eCPM today and say, okay, what am I getting per thousand in Safari? What I'm getting per thousand in Chrome? And then apply the lowest eCPM across all of your inventory come next year when the third-party cookie goes. And that's probably an indication where you will be if you do nothing. Then I would look into the identity space. You know, I would look at how can I put an ID into the bid stream so I can still make that inventory that's going out addressable at a very baseline. So can brands still push their data through the DSPs and buy the right audience across my inventory because there's an ID there to do that? Can brands still apply second and third party data to do that? So that would be probably the first things I would do, and that's kind of a baseline sort of protection level to protect revenue. And I also think there's some upsides as well, because today it's very difficult to monetize that Safari and Firefox traffic. And I think the identity solutions is not only a Chrome thing to solve Chrome, these are also things that actually help today in Safari and Firefox, because it's exactly the same kind of ecosystem. And then I would look at other solutions like context. Can I build some context? How do I get that first party data out there? I would also look at maybe data enrichment. Can I actually bring data down to enrich some of my audience to do some more direct buys? Can I move some of that inventory either through context or through data enrichment into PMPs or deal IDs? And I think deal IDs are going to be very important to the agencies moving forward, having a strategy around that, because deal IDs is still going to be a common currency that all the DSPs support and adopt, where not all platforms are going to support every ID that's out there on the market. So deal IDs is also, publishers need to understand how to create them, set them up if they're not doing it already, because I think agencies will try and simplify processes as well. And I think perhaps the deal ID becomes very important as well moving forward.
Okay, and like you know me long enough, I like to have a plan or kind of an ask from every side of the ecosystem, I guess. So my ask for buyers has been, let's go from education to action, right? Yeah. And let's get 4, 5, 6 campaigns, whatever it looks like, up and running, testing this, seeing what the performance is, and doing that over this kind of summertime while we're all enjoying the Euros and everything else before Q4 arrives, right? Because that arrives, it disappears, and we don't see it, it flies by. And I guess that's my ask. What's your ask for buyers? What do you want buyers to do over the next 6 months?
Yeah, and this is definitely, because look, we're all head down in Q4 trying to deliver the rush for the end of the year, the spending around the holidays, etc. So I think now is really the time, so probably as I just said, from the publisher side, look, if you haven't got IDs adopted, now's the time to review and look at the different ID solutions. And then from the buy side, you should be looking about now buying inventory on these IDs and running tests, whether that's partnering up with publishers and having the publisher help you, walk you through that, or whether that's coming to your trusted data providers, etc., and say, okay, I want to run some tests on unified IDs as opposed to cookies. I want to see end to end what I get from it. Can I still target? How do I match that up? You need to really start looking at doing these tests within the next 3 to 4 months. I would say to start getting a comfortability around that, and we are starting to see that. I think it's fair to say that agencies are very keen to test now with publishers and with data providers, etc. I think there's been a little bit of a queuing system. Honestly, I would say probably the tail end of last year and the start of the beginning of this year, all the different ad tech businesses, martech businesses, has still been exchanging spec and how do we pass IDs between businesses, and the loop hasn't always been completed. But I would say today, most of that work's been done, and the ecosystem's now there to actually start testing properly cookieless or third-party cookieless solutions.
Yeah. Okay. And look, everybody that's attending, can you start putting questions in the Q&A if you've got any? Because I'm going to give the last kind of 10 minutes to questions. I guess last point for me then, Chris, is it feels like there's a lot of discussion. It feels like there's a lot of people there's a lot of willingness for buyers to test. Is there a template that you guys as a DMP or even just as a vendor in the ecosystem can give us publishers, buyers and marketers kind of a template of what does a test look like? Because again, this is a point of like lots of people want to test. We kind of go, yeah, we're willing. Buyers say we're willing. There's so many different options to test, i.e. curating marketplaces or context, or what does a test look like for you guys, and what can you facilitate for people?
Yeah, and that's another really good question, and yeah, we should get this stuff on paper as a resource, maybe on the IAB. Might be one I'll pick up, but definitely I think you've got to maybe pick 1 or 2 categories. Whether it's, hey, I want to test a contextual play, I want to test an ID play, and then whether that's a probabilistic ID or a deterministic ID, maybe even test both. I think brands won't have the luxury to pick one over the other. So it's very much around, hey, can I buy some inventory within my buying platform? For argument's sake, let's call that a DSP today. Whether that's a deal ID direct from a publisher where they're pushing data through, or whether that's me picking other second or third party data off the shelf and then buying my inventory. I think they are two very important tests to do. So how can I get a PMP set up with a publisher, and how can I, when I say PMP or a deal ID, and actually how can I also append some second or third party data to an ID and buy that as well across the ecosystem. And I think they're two tests that are available today, either through partners like ourselves or through publishers like Terry and Reach, is just to get out there and actually start to construct. We'd be more than happy to run people through, as I'm sure Terry would be more than happy to run people through, and other publishers, to formulate that template. And it will be slightly different depending on the use cases, but I think they're the two focus areas where I would start to test.
Okay. And in terms of kind of then, so we fast forward, we're in the sunshine again this time next year. What does the world look like for you? Do you think there's going to be, if you had a pie of 100%, is it going to be 90% context? Is it going to be 10% ID? What's your prediction for how that market's going to go?
Yeah. So if I would, I think the first thing that I would do is split the ecosystem into authenticated and non-authenticated. So, and it's not a set rule, and some organizations are going to be better off than others. I think the first part of the pie is could authenticated IDs baked with email and login, I think that's probably going to grow to about 30% if we're sitting here this time next year. As I say, some organizations will get that larger than others. Then I would say the non-authenticated side would be about 70% of the pie. And then I think that's where we're playing with the strategies between context and identity. And if I'm honest, I don't have that crystal ball where I would see that that identity space and the context space playing out. I think from my mind, what I'm hearing from marketers, they want to be playing in all of the pots. So, and I think obviously cash, money, spend that really directs where the industry goes. So I think if large marketers want to play in all pools, I think the supply side will start operating in different pools. And again, as I say, depending on the publisher, might not have a choice. They might be 100% ID, and other publishers might be 100% context because it leans better to their assets. But I think we're really looking at that 70% piece of the pie that is not email or login.
Okay, good. Right, fine. And then the question from Matthew: how do we develop a sense of urgency amongst brands and agencies who are waiting for confirmation on exactly what Google and Apple are doing? And again, you made a very good point, Matthew. Of a lot of people think it's too soon to move. I guess from my view, the urgency is stuff like this, right? We do panels, and at the end of this, I will say, look, any marketers, anybody that wants to test, come out. Let's do it. Let's get that urgency done. Then we can go back to brands and say, look, it's an urgency to do. Here's what a template looks like, what a test looks like. And I don't think there's no danger in moving quickly, right? If we do context and we do ID, and then in December, for some reason, everybody goes, you know what, Chrome's not going to do it now, and the cookie's going to survive forever, then we're only reinforcing what we've done before, right? So in my view, everything we do now is extra on top of, right? And I'll give you a prime example of how that works is in the pandemic last year, in the middle of this summer last year, Reach PLC as a digital business did a lot of things to work and battle against the challenge we had at that time. And actually they're still in place now, which makes us grow even further. So for us, I think anything we can do now, whether Google or Apple move or not, we will be ready. And also, if we're not, then this is pluses on top of pluses, really, for us. Chris, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I come back to that portfolio approach. By testing doesn't mean you have to make final decisions. It's actually getting your business ready and understanding each different strategy that you will need to adopt. And if one strategy actually comes out towards the end of the year stronger than the other, you haven't wasted that time, but what you've added is a security blanket to your business that, okay, your business understands how to deal with unified IDs. Your business understands how to do with context. And we haven't spoke a lot about Flock today, but that is a strategy that businesses are going to have to understand how it's going to work. So I think it's not wasted time, and actually sitting, waiting for the right answer is the wrong answer. I think you need to be dipping your toes in multiple different portfolio of ways for you to continue to do your business so you're in the right place. Either to deliver all of them in different percentages or actually, okay, that is the right one for me, and that's how I feel the industry has moved for my business. It's going to be different for every business. There is no one template, because you've got to look internally to be able to understand what works for you.
Yeah, and I think that's a really critical point, is that there's not one template and there's not one solution, there's not one provider. So I'm really up for the thought of publishers, agencies, advertisers, consultants, everybody working together to do the same thing. And I think that's key for us, is as an industry we are stronger together, and separately we're weaker. So
100%.
I think from our point of view, I think we definitely need to kind of push that boundary and use them templates across multiple solutions, multiple products, and multiple kind of insight and tech companies. I think
you don't have to pick one ID. You don't have to have one probabilistic ID. You could have 3 in the bid stream. You don't have to have one deterministic. You could, so I think that interoperability, as you say, and Terry, is going to be critical moving forward.
Yeah, look, I'm getting pushed to 9 minutes left. So any questions, if you can put them in there now, we can answer them. If not, then obviously terry.hornsby@reachplc.com or LinkedIn, you can message me any questions if you want to know any insights. I'm more than open and more than happy to talk to everybody about any solutions or any challenges you've got. Right? This is not a place to be quiet. This is not. There's no silly questions. There's no silly solutions. Nobody's further than anybody else. We're all in this together. We all have solutions. We all have ideas. I have lots of weird ideas. I have lots of normal ideas. I'm willing to share them. Chris gets them on a daily basis. But I think, yeah, from my view, I think, look, my summary of this is identity is not going away. It's never gone away. We've always been battling in one way or shape or form to get more enhanced identity or know our users better. This is our opportunity to know them better. This is our opportunity to, as a publisher, use context. This is our opportunity as publishers and buyers to have that relationship and talk about that relationship for a mattress buyer or somebody moving house. So including somebody that moves house and they're getting a new bed, a new mattress, right? That's discussions that we can have that are different. And back to your point, Chris, I call them social signals, you call them kind of mood segments. That insight of, okay, just because you've been on the football section does not mean you're a football fan yet, but how do we verify that? How do we use first-party data, context, frequency, engagement, time on page, all of them elements to build them segments? And I actually think the focus on this will make us focused as an industry and as individual publishers, and will perform better for advertisers and marketers. And I think that's where we'll need to go. Right, Andrew, so the question, where do you reach thinks first-party data will help you build closer relationship with brand agencies versus adopting enabling alternative industry IDs? I think there's two things there. I think we as Reach PLC, we are going to adopt IDs. We are working with some already. We're working with others, and we will need to do that as a mechanism or a logic to use in the open web and the programmatic space. What I see really clearly is that brands are in this with us, and I've spoke to direct brands. I've spoke to agencies that are pitching to direct brands about this and what it looks like for them in the future. And I hope and I feel that the relationship will get stronger because there is big advertisers out there that are going to be in a silo space without a output, and we are the output for them as publishers. And I think in the past we've not had to build a strong relationship because we've always had that bridge in between, and we've both had options to go other paths. But I believe that there's a really strong opportunity for publishers going forward with that, what we call kind of that, I guess, that second party data relationship of, your customers, we know our customers, actually they're the same people. What can we enrich for each other? And I think it's a very much two-way relationship as well. In the past, I think we've always relied on one way where we can provide our insight and our engagement, and the advertiser can overlay theirs, but we've never really gone, what, actually is verify that together. And the person that I believe loves watches and dogs might be the person that you believe loves cats. And we can verify that together. And I think that's the opportunity for getting that closer relationship between brand and us. Cool. All right, guys. Well, look, I think ping any other messages you need to me. Thank you for joining me at lunchtime. Thank you for joining me from all over the different places. There's one more question from Steve, actually. Being a strong investor in contextual solutions, are Reach Find advertiser results in contextual environments? Yes. So we're running a bunch of products which are called Audience Plus, and a layer of that segmentation is contextual. So for an example, we run a clothing brand recently, and it was people that visited and behavioural data as normal publishers will do at a certain frequency. And then we overlaid the contextual pieces of fashion, female fashion, summer, and certain elements of summer fashion. And we saw CTR increases of up to kind of 40% on that campaign. So I believe contextual done correctly in the right place at the right time can perform really well. So we are seeing really strong results, and obviously we're investing in context with Mantis, but we're also investing it for the industry, right? That you've seen that there's certain publishers signed up this week, and they're welcome on board, and there's others that have been live for a while, and we're providing that as a solution as well, right? And I say, look, any publisher out there that wants to use context, then use the tools that we've got out there, because we created that for the market, not just for us, because we knew that context was going to be one of the important parts going forward. Cool. All right then, guys. Well, thank you for joining me, and hope you enjoyed today. Feedback and message me on LinkedIn if you need to. Chris, thanks very much for joining me, mate.
Cheers.
Sorry, I
missed
the bus you got on it, but we'll speak to you soon. Cheers, guys.
Coming to
See you
get
later. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thanks, guys. Yeah. Bye.